And I don't know, somebody must have started giving me cameras because next thing you know I was collecting them.
In the basement here with one of St. Albert's preeminent collectors of cameras. And joining us is Neil Meacham. And Neil, thanks very much for talking to us today. I was fascinated when I saw the article in our local newspaper, the Gazette, about your camera collection. And thank you very much for inviting me in to have a look at it. It's quite fascinating. How did you get started collecting cameras, and when did you start?
Well, I started about the mid-70s. How I got going, I have no idea. I can't even remember now, but I had an old Tower Sears camera that I used myself. And
So just for amateur photography, like family pictures?
Yeah, that was it back in, because it was an old box camera. Then I started in, I don't know, about the early 70s, or the early 60s, I mean, and I had a 35mm Pentax, and I took lots and lots of slides. And I don't know, somebody must have started giving me cameras because next thing you know I was collecting them.
Well, now
the mid-70s.
Now, but you also you kind of like many of us. I mean, if it's here in the world, people will collect it. But you've also collected a few other things over the years, some spoons and matchbook covers and different things. So you always kind of had that collecting bug, I assume.
Yeah, I did. I collected coins, and I still do, and stuff like that.
So how many cameras do you think you have currently in your collection?
I have 800 and a few. Because it's changed since the thing in the Gazette. I've collected about another 20-25 cameras.
So you're still collecting?
Oh yeah, but there's a lot of oddball ones I haven't heard of, which are fine, but I don't pay for them. I just, if they're given to me, I take them.
Right. And
so I've got a lot of oddball ones in the last while. I started out collecting Kodak, Ansco, and Polaroid. That was my start, and then since then I've added a few different ones.
A few, 800 or so.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the oldest camera in your collection?
I have a couple of them that are just before the turn of the 19th century, like 1890 to 1900. You can't tell exact, but right in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's have a look at it. Wow.
It's an Empire State made by Kodak out of Rochester Optical Company out of New York.
Now, how come it has such a long bellow thing here?
Well, that's so you can change the length of the picture you're taking. Like in today's technology, I guess it would be called.
Like the aperture?
Yeah, setting it. It takes plate on glass plates, and it's meant for a big sack that goes over your head at the back.
Right.
In the old style.
So you would have had to stand very still for that photo, I would assume.
Yes. And I mean, this thing moves up and down, and lots of things that you can't tell what's going on here that moves.
Wow, that's very cool.
I have one about twice this size upstairs. I couldn't get it down here. It's too big.
So now, is this the same?
This is the early 1900s. This is Ansco.
So it's quite different. I mean, it still has the bellow, but it's like a higher technology than the one we just looked at.
No, just built different. It takes plate cameras. The shutter release is done by just squeezing an air thing here, and it makes the shutter go.
Okay.
So that's something new.
So how would they develop that once you took the image with this camera? You said it was on plates. How would they develop that? You just take the picture.
No, I've never taken pictures. I don't take pictures with old cameras. I've learned it costs money. I don't know how they develop them. I've never looked it up on the plate cameras, to be honest with you, on the glass.
Okay. That was the Kodak yellow was unmistakable.
Yeah. Like this thing here is over 100 years old. Pictures in it. Stuff like that.
So these would probably be taken with the that first camera we looked at?
Yeah, yeah.
So you would have to sit pretty still, would you?
I'd say so.
Because the exposure would take a while?
143-year-old album.
Wow.
This is from Elaine's mom's family.
Okay. Look at that. So this is kind of the secret stash back here, Neil.
Yeah, this is a secret stash.
We've got to watch our head in here. So these are all items that are for sale, or you already have one, or so kind of your trading stock.
Yep.
Well, here's the kind of Polaroid that I remember using something like that, or maybe like this one.
This is an interesting piece. It's Kodak printing frame.
Look at that. Where did you get that from?
Well, I got it from a guy who wanted to get rid of stuff.
Oh, so he was a collector?
No.
No?
Well, I shouldn't say that.
Kodak
He had a
print.
few things. 1900 to 1910.
So Neil, we were talking about this downstairs, and this is a very large camera, and it's built right onto that frame. When was this made, roughly, do you think?
Around 1900, 1910. This wheel.
Oh, so it's got.
Moving up and down, and
So what do you think they used this for? Was this for portraits type of thing?
I would say so, yeah.
Now, where did you find this camera?
This came from South Dakota. A friend of mine I was doing business with. I was selling forklifts back then.
Oh, okay.
That was the dealer, and he found this, and he sent me pictures up from South Dakota, and we ended up coming in a big box, wooden box.
So you had it shipped up
Yeah,
to St. Albert from all the way from the Dakotas.
all the way from the Dakotas.
Wow. So Neil, you had mentioned that one of the first cameras you used was a box camera, and that's now is that what you're holding in your hand right there?
Yeah. Put out by, well, it had tower on it, made by Sears.
Was that common then, that different places would have their own cameras made and they'd sell in their stores? It was like their store brand?
Sometimes I guess it was.
So
Because most of the box cameras I got have got Kodak written on them, but that particular one has Sears on it.
and that whole wall right there.
That whole section up there is box cameras, and then they went to this style here. They went to folding bellows style.
Okay, and these cameras used film.
Yes.
So this was kind of like the next evolution from the plate that we looked at those first cameras.
Yeah, and this comes up the line. Yeah.
Now, what kind of film would that take? What would you put in that?
Just it's about a 1/16 or so film. It looks like, well, just like what we're looking at here, except it's a big one. This is without the film on it, but there's the different sizes and they take.
Right, okay.
When you got it together, it looks like when the film's in it. I don't have any film in these old ones because they were too old.
Yeah. So depending on the size of the camera,
Yeah,
it said in
It had a different thing like this in it.
Right. Now, so how would you develop those? Like, you take the pictures and then what? You'd mail them off or take them into a store, or how would that work?
You could, except I did my own
So you,
back then. It was developing equipment. Let's see.
so you had your own dark room and.
Yeah. There were, the roll films were developed in a thing like this. You put it in in a container like this and whirled it around and developed to make negatives.
Okay.
In a solution.
So you could do it yourself at home,
Oh yeah.
or you could mail it out to a
Sears
developer.
or somebody,
Sears, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I developed my own. I had my own. This enlarger came from the farm in Saskatchewan.
Now, how did that end up on the farm?
I bought it. Yeah.
So you could make any size of print that you wanted then.
Yeah.
Once you had this enlarger.
Yeah, there's a thing on the bottom here that you can. This is a different one. This is a more up-to-date one, but this moves up and down.
Right.
And you could bring the bottom, this thing goes down too. So let's see here.
So you could raise it, lower it.
Yeah, you could raise it and lower it and do stuff like this.
Okay. And what's?
Well, this is 2 or 3 different ones.
Oh, this is another one here. This silver one.
This is the silver one. Is the one with the gray bottom here. This doesn't have nothing to do with the camera.
Right. Okay.
That's what that has. And then the big white one is for this one here.
Yeah.
That was given to me in later years by a guy that didn't want to collect cameras anymore.
Well, my goodness, you have so many different types and styles of cameras.
I do.
So do you still come across cameras that are a surprise to you, or maybe you haven't heard about, or different in some way?
Well, I just came across a Polaroid land camera that I didn't think had Sears name on it, and it's got Sears on it. That just come up in the last week.
So all these years collecting, and there's a, a camera that...
Oh yeah, there's cameras that I haven't seen. Because there's hundreds of different brands of cameras, and I don't have half of them.
So I guess that's part of the joy of collecting, though, is that even all after all these years, you can still find new things that are new to you and new to the collection. That's terrific.
And I keep track of them in a book. Every camera is recorded. About once every 6 months or a year, we redo this list.
Okay.
So I have a list. For instance, get into Kodak, there's the brand name and the different series I got and where they came from and where they were made and what they're worth if I can find out.
So over the years, I mean, I guess you get an understanding of what a particular camera might be worth, or how rare it is, or how common it is. Or
yeah, if you're really into it hot and heavy, you can. I'm sort of on the edge. I'm winding out of it a little bit, so I don't have the up-to-date information as much as you could, but you can get a lot of stuff online. And
right.
sometimes it's worth what they say, and sometimes it isn't.
Just like most things online.
Yeah.
Now, this book over to your left, this is also kind of a reference book you've used over the years?
Yes, it is. It gives me an eyeball of, or an idea what the camera is worth and when it was made, and so I can go into Kodak here, and the Retina Kodak, for instance, it'll tell you the year and the model and what it's worth, $120 to $180 US.
Well, it's always only worth what somebody will pay for it.
That's correct. It's like somebody says, "What's your collection worth?" Well, if you can't get anybody to buy it, it ain't worth anything. If you try.
Okay, so you have the first Polaroid ever made.
Well, it's not the first model.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, don't get carried away.
Polaroid 95, the first.
Yeah, and then the 95A was the second series that was out.
Which one is that? This
big one above it, right one there.
This one.
The one beside it's an up-to-date one, obviously. Digital.
Oh, right up there. Look at that. You know, Neil, there's some people watching this that have no idea what a Polaroid is or what film is, or...
These are your up-to-date, more up-to-date Kodaks. Instamatics and stuff. This is oddball stuff. Yashica, that's a brand that was around. The reason there's signs on some of these, this was in a museum about 20 years ago in St. Albert. Like some of the cameras were.
Yeah, yeah.
Those are your Kodaks.
Yeah. Now, if you had any advice for somebody who was interested in starting to collect cameras, or maybe has got a small collection and want to expand, what's the best advice you could give to somebody who wants to get into camera collecting?
Well, I collect a lot of my cameras from grad sales, to be honest with you. Because by the time they hit the second-hand stores, at least the ones that are into collecting heavy-duty stuff, they're about twice what they're worth. Although the value villages and the things of today, they're not too bad. Sometimes they get carried away in their prices, but they're out to get what they can get, and you can't blame them for that.
Well, and for me in book collecting, probably the most fun part is looking.
Yeah.
Is going out on the search and trying to find something you haven't seen before, or something really cool.
You go to a grad sale quite often, and I never thought about that. Yeah, I got an old one. Then just a minute, I'll see if I can find it in the house.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll end up with a camera that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing how it works.
So you've quite enjoyed the hobby and the journey, and still enjoying it.
I'm still enjoying it. I'm running out of space.
That's the eternal issue all of us collectors face is, I need a bigger basement. I need a bigger house.
That ain't gonna happen. I'm told this is it.
This is it. Now, last question for you. Do you have a favorite camera that kind of sticks out for you in your collection that you've always thought, this is one of the coolest cameras that I have?
I don't know. I got a graphics over there that a gentleman gave me from St. Albert here a few years back. It's quite an interesting piece.
Now, graphics, is that a brand name? Yeah.
Yeah. Crown Graphics, 1947.
Wow. Now that's the kind of camera you see in those movies where the old, the press guy and the flash bulbs going off. And
yes. Did one a few years back. I went to Disneyland about 20 years ago with a German spy camera that I have, and I decided to take it along and take pictures. Well, I ended up getting the negatives done. It cost me about $40 or $50, as I mentioned before, and not all I got out of it was negatives. If I wanted to film, I had to redo it and send it out again.
Oh my goodness! What does a German spy camera look like?
It's a little feller like this.
Now, was it used in World War II? These types of cameras?
Yep. 1948. Little Minox.
Wow.
And then they used this thing here. They took close-ups, so the thing measured different. If you're near the camera, it measured so you could take close-ups.
All the secret plans and the blueprints and.
That's exactly what they did. So.
Wow.
It was a German spy camera.
Very cool. Neil, thank you again for allowing us to come into your home and look at your wonderful collection. It's been awesome. And anytime you want to come by the bookstore and look at the books, we'd love to have you come visit.
I'll do that. I know where you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil. When I got back to the shop after visiting Neil and his camera collection, I got thinking about books that I would have here in the store, because I have lots from 18 1825, 1850, 75, upwards, and a few earlier. But that might include some of the equipment that we saw at Neil's place. So I pulled a few out. Let's have a look at those. This is an 8-volume set I have sitting on the shelf, and I'm pleased to say I rescued these from going in a dumpster. Yep, somebody's going to throw these beautiful books in a dumpster. I mean, look at the gold tooling. 8 volumes. And it's 3/4 bound. It looks like calf leather. Anyway, it's called Great Men and Famous Women. It is published in 1894. So probably too early for any of the equipment we saw at Neil's place. However, they had a technique back then called I think I'm pronouncing this right, photogravure. There, can you see the word? There it is. Which was a technique they used prior to actual photographs. And I'm no expert on this stuff, but they took some kind of photo emulsion and a tintype or something, and kind of took a sketch or an etching and made it, well, look like this. So that's not a photograph. Okay, that's not what we're here to talk about. Here's another book I have here in the shop, The Northwest, Its History and Its Troubles. Kind of a nice volume. It is published 1885, and this is about Canada, obviously. Now they have no photographs at all. Line drawings, which before the photogravures and the actual photographs, all you could use was, wood cuts and prints and etchings and that sort of stuff. But I just kind of like this book. Thought I'd show it to you. Now here, I just recently acquired this photograph from an exhibition, a recent exhibition that closed at the Musée Héritage Museum here in St. Albert. And this is the St. Albert Fire Brigade from 1912. So I think this is right in the area that the photograph would have been taken with the kind of camera that Neil showed us, with the long bellow and the plate glass to capture the image. Look what I came back to the shop with. That's right, a whole bunch of cameras. That was a great visit with Neil. Really enjoyed the opportunity to visit with him and view his collection. And these cameras are going to go back over here on these shelves, because if you didn't know, I am now selling a few different things in the shop, some collectibles, some knickknacks, bookends, a few different things, and that's exactly where these cameras are going to go. So if you have an interest in some vintage cameras, stop in, have a look, and maybe you might get started on collecting yourself. That's it for this episode of Bailey the Bookman. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you soon.